Is there a perennial future of agriculture? That is both the title and the overall research question of my proposal. Since the Neolithic Revolution, over 70% of our food is derived from annual crops, often grown in monocultures. Agriculture has sometimes been described as the most destructive activity humanity ever invented. Let's take a look at some of the problems of modern agriculture. We are losing soils up to 1,000 times faster than the rate of soil formation. Half of the nutrients added to the fields are lost. A lot of soil carbon has been lost, much of it in the form of carbon dioxide to the atmosphere. Pesticides, particularly herbicides, is a major driver of biodiversity loss. In many agricultural systems, we put in more energy than we can harvest. A root cause of these problems is the dominant use of annual plants. A shift to perennial crops has the potential to reduce or even reverse these problems, and many of the social and economic ones as well. But can perennial grain crops be developed? In the last couple of decades, non-profit plant breeding has made tremendous progress in breeding perennial grain crops. Two approaches are used: de novo domestication of wild plants and wide hybridization by crossing an annual crop with a wild perennial relative. Here are the crops that have advanced the most. Perennial rice, by the way, was coined one of the scientific breakthroughs of 2022 by science. In the perennial project, we will focus on intermediate wheatgrass and sainfoin. Intermediate wheatgrass is a wheat-like perennial grain, but has a root biomass that is 10 to 15 times larger than annual wheat. Grain yield is currently significantly lower than wheat, but increasing very rapidly with breeding. Sainfoin is a perennial protein crop, much like lentils, and a nitrogen fertilizer where breeding has shown very promising results. So what is the prospect of a perennial revolution? The challenge of shifting to perennial grains can be illustrated by an extension of Imre Lakatosh's idea of a research program. Lakatosh speaks of an irrefutable core, in our case annual grains, surrounded by a protective belt of disciplines. To that we add a protective belt of political economy with a myriad actors. The challenge for perennial grains is to break through these belts. To do this, we need a strong theoretical foundation. Our theoretical foundation is the following: a theory for envisioning change based on Eric Olin Wright's Envisioning Real Utopias. Theories for understanding resistance and barriers to such change based on Stephen Luke's 3 dimensions of power. Theories for how to overcome barriers and scaling of change based on transition theory and the multi-level perspective. The project is structured around 3 interacting research tasks. The first is a systematic critique that will help us understanding how the incumbent regime will react to a perennial shift, identifying allies and opponents. The second is envisioning that will enable us to generate quantitative information on pros and cons of shifting to perennial grains using state-of-the-art modeling. The third is to formulate the strategies of change, and this will be informed by 3 cases in which perennial grains are already being pioneered. So to what extent is this high gain, high risk? A perennial revolution has the potential to change agriculture towards a functioning ecosystem, to challenge the power of the agrochemical industrial complex, to shift agriculture from a greenhouse gas source to a sink, to transform rural economies from dwindling to thriving societies. And the risks are that the incumbent regime will co-opt or obstruct the idea of a perennial revolution, and that perennial grains remain a niche market. Our research collaborations are found in 3 countries where perennial grains are pioneered: So thank you for listening. And here I end with a picture showing intermediate wheatgrass next to wheat.